Very good morning to you. It is Tuesday. This is Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity. It's the only place you're going to see the Texans practice together. And there, off in the distance under that red tent, is Mark Vandermeer, looking at his phone, talking on the radio. Beneath him in the white with his hand on his hip, that's John Harris. They're doing live radio as they do every day from 8 to 10 a.m. during training camp. So in about 25 minutes or so, we're going to hear from John Harris, and he's going to join us. I'm Drew Doherty, your DP Sue. It's good to be back with you, DP. We heard from Bill O'Brien a few moments ago. Texans still in a holding pattern as far as the Hurricanes are concerned. There is a scrimmage scheduled for Thursday night. It's still going to go on, but we'll see what happens, hurricane or not. And Bill O'Brien, when he was asked about it, said, hey, that's typical for 2020. We'll just adjust. Everything else has happened this year. If it's a setback, we'll handle it. We'll stick and move, and it is what it is. All those cliches that are appropriate and all that stuff, but you can't control nature.
No, you can't. It is so apropos for 2020 to have a double hurricane, now a single hurricane heading this way, just in time for the Texans scrimmage. And, you know, they are keeping an eye on the weather. I feel like Bill O'Brien is such a Houstonian now because he was talking about the American versus the European model. I think that's a true test of how long you've lived in the city and how many hurricanes you've had to endure. It only takes one before you jump on that real quick and start watching for the cone of certainty and the patterns for the weather. But we're certainly hoping that it dissipates and it's not as bad as it looks right now. But in the meantime, the Texans can only continue to prepare for the 2020 season, which is just over 2 weeks away. Kickoff at Kansas City. So hard to believe how quickly this training camp is going by. You see the players out there warming up, stretching, getting loose, activated. No thoughts of hurricane in their heads right now as they get ready for a day of a practice in their shells, it looks like. If they've been in full pads for quite a number of days, you're allowed to have 14 in this year's training camp. But, you know, I think that this is something that we're going to continue to watch the weather. And hopefully the scrimmage goes on as planned. That'll be 7 o'clock at NRG Stadium.
Yeah.
Not open to fans. So before you want to know if you can get tickets, you can't. It's closed. And it's really just an opportunity for the coaches to work on their operation, sort of get things clicking that they don't really get a chance to do this year because of no preseason games.
Yeah, you say operation, and some fans might be like, what the heck is she talking about? Well, you don't just send plays in. You got to have an order to them. So that's Tim Kelly on the headset talking to Deshaun Watson with the receiver in his ear. That's communicating with guys up in the booth, assistant coaches up in the booth and getting stuff down there. That's having substitutions with players. There's a lot that goes into the mechanics of basically running a game if you're a coaching staff and if you're a football team, and that's what the Texans are going to work on. You see Keon Cross in there doing a little bit of dancing during the stretch, number 35. He's a guy who brings the energy. I had a chance to talk with him last week, and he gets pretty animated when he's out there doing the dynamic stretching like they're doing now. But Deshaun Watson, he's out there. You saw number 81, Kahali Waring, he's out there today. Number 66, Nick Martin, 78, Laramie Tunsil, they're practicing. J.J. Watt is going through some of the stretching, but he is not in a helmet. He is not in pads. He's in just kind of shorts and a T-shirt, workout gear. Remember, he's on a different ramp-up period. He's been through practice the last few days. So he is not out there. You see Whitney Merciless is, however. And the guy in the middle, Hurricane Deshaun Watson, looking to do great things. In my cone of certainty, I am certain of one thing. And Deshaun Watson, if he's under center, your team has an excellent chance at winning football games. So the Texans getting ready for another round of practice today. DP, we heard from Bill O'Brien, in addition to talking about that hurricane and what the Texans may or may not do, said Kiki QT, not out there today, and he's been having a good camp, but he's kind of in that same ramp-up idea or ramp-up phase as the others, or not the others, but he's in his own ramp-up phase. So we haven't seen Kiki the last few days as we look at DeAndre Carter, number 14, Kenny Stills, Duke Johnson, and David Johnson there, number 31. Those guys ready to rock, and they're out there today. But no Kiki QT. Jonathan Grenard, the rookie outside linebacker, has been out, and he's going to be fine, according to O'Brien. He'll be back soon enough. But he has missed some time with practice, and O'Brien didn't elaborate on what was setting him back. So, based on what he said, it sounds like it's going to be okay for Grenard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can read too much into anything at this point in time. I think they're being extra extra cautious with anything that they see out there. They want the guys to get plenty of times to rest and recover for the next day of practice. The big goal is to have everyone healthy in time for September 10th at Kansas City. So if there's even a hint of doubt anywhere in anyone's mind, they're going to let them take a day off or a Veterans Day off or whatever it is and just ramp them up slowly. And that's kind of where everyone's at right now with the injuries. I wouldn't read too much into it until September 10th and you see who's out there on the field. But especially with J.J. Watt, we've heard that he's healthy. We've heard that he looks good. And yet we've only seen a smidgen of J.J. Watt in training camp, which is totally fine. I'm okay with if you want to take some of these other veterans like David Johnson and bubble wrap them too. That's totally fine with me. Of course, David Johnson's still working on his chemistry with Watson, getting acclimated with the offense. I had a chance to talk to Duke Johnson yesterday, which we'll get a chance to catch up with him later. And he gives his insight on how long it took him to sort of acclimate to the offense, which was a little bit surprising because when you saw him on the field, you would have no idea that the transition took as long as it did.
Indeed. And hey, if you're watching this, we want to hear from you no matter where you're watching us from. So if you're like Bridget in Atlanta, send us a question. Or if you're hollering at us from England, we want to hear from you. So just comment below whichever social media device you're watching us on, and we will get with you. Like Jack, and Jack wants to know, is PJ Hall practicing? He has the last few days. I haven't seen him today, but I haven't seen every single number. But PJ Hall has been going through work, and he's been doing a nice job. He's had some good compliments by some of the coaches, some of his teammates. So yes, PJ Hall has been out there. DeWalt from Houston. Lonnie Johnson has been doing drills with the safeties. Thoughts on that? Well, DeWalt, it's a good observation you make because earlier O'Brien was asked about Lonnie Johnson earlier this morning, and he said, yeah, he's a very versatile guy. It's a week-to-week type of thing with him. He can play outside cornerback. He can play safety because of his size, because of his skill set. He's able to do a lot of different things. Good on special teams as well. So, yeah, Lonnie Johnson can definitely line up at safety and will line up at safety at times this season, but he's going to be a cornerback as well. He's not just somebody you can box into one of those positions, and that's going to be what we think is a hallmark of this Anthony Weaver defense, Stevie.
Yeah, and I think, of course, of the secondary as well, because Danton Lynn talked about the secondary being full of versatile guys that have played both positions, safety and cornerback. And Lonnie, for all intents and purposes, is still listed as a cornerback on this roster, so that's going to be his primary position. I wouldn't look for an official position change that he's changing to safety. And Bill O'Brien, he sort of chuckled when he was asked about it this morning in the press conference if he was going to play more safety. That's definitely a competitive advantage he doesn't want to give away, but it's no secret that everyone in the secondary is going to play multiple positions back there, and I think that's what they like. They like the fact that they can present different looks every single week, and you never know where a guy could line up or what he could play, but they're able to cover a variety of different guys with a variety of different skill sets, and I think it's great news for Lonnie Johnson. I know John Harris has been very high on Lonnie, dabbling in safety a little bit because he really looks the part and he has a skill set definitely. But I'm excited to see what Lonnie does in year two. It looks like he's having a great camp and he's made some great plays the last few days.
Yes, he has. Dylan has clear eyes and a full heart, and Dylan wants to know how many touchdowns will Will Fuller V score this season? If he's healthy, double digits, I think, because he's been called a touchdown maker by Bill O'Brien, and he can get deep. He can run all the routes on the route tree. And he is really just somebody that you've got to account for all the time, and you roll double coverage, sometimes even more towards his way. But I think he's gonna cook this year. I'm looking forward to what he can do. He can also return punts. He's returned a punt for a touchdown in his career. That happened as a rookie back against the Tennessee Titans here inside NRG Stadium early on that season. Haven't seen him do much of that since as far as returning punts, but he's capable. That's something Bill O'Brien was also asked about this morning, who's going to return punts. But DeAndre Carter's your main guy. Behind him, however, there are guys who have experience, like Will Fuller, like Randall Cobb, like Duke Johnson, even John Reed. So we shall see what he does as far as that goes. I don't think you're going to see him returning punts too often, but I think Will Fuller can score a lot of touchdowns.
I definitely don't want to see Will Fuller returning punts. I want to see him out there on offense every single week. But I love that at least once a year we see a game where he scores 3 touchdowns and goes bananas. I think those are some of my most favorite games that we've covered because they're just so much fun to watch when he has a big day like that. So I'm not making any predictions for the season, but I would like to see those maybe 2-3 touchdown games more frequently this year, because that means he's healthy, he's on the field, and he's really being the difference maker that we all know he is when he's out there.
Andrew in Austin is watching us. So is Abel, and Abel's watching us at work. Abel, I won't tell if DP won't tell, so your secret is safe with us. Thanks for checking us out. Hope you're doing great. Cullen wants to know, is Tyrell Adams practicing? Number 50 has been out there. Yeah, quite a bit. He has been someone that the Texans have worked into the rotation. He's seen a little bit of time with the ones because of what's going on ramp-up wise. But yeah, Tyrell Adams has practiced. He's been a very important part of the special teams when he's been with the squad the last few years. Lucy wants to know, who will start with J.J. Watt? And I guess if she's asking who's the other defensive end, it's a good question. Could be a lot of different guys. Mm-hmm. But up front, you got names like Dunn, DJ Dunny, Angelo Blackson. Those guys have been out there on the edge, or not on the edge, but at the defensive end position in the 3-4. Might see guys like Charles Omenihu slide in a time or two.
Yeah, we talked to John Harris yesterday about that, with J.J. Watt being out, who is getting a majority of those reps. And he said Charles Omenihu has definitely been out there, and he's been benefiting from J.J.'s ramp-up period. So I would like to see Omenihu and Watt out there together, just to see what Omenihu does. I think it's year 2 for him. He is a big difference maker and rushing the passer, and worked on his pass rush moves. But they have a number of options, like you said, and they like the veterans that they have in Angelo, who blocked some field goals last year, back-to-back games late in the year.
Yeah, that was money.
That was such a great pickup for the Texans. And then, of course, Brandon Dunn, who's been here, been through the system, and he can play a number of positions, even on the interior part of that defensive line. So I don't know. It's a great question, but I think they've got a couple of options, and I think we're going to find out week 1. Right now, it's very hard to pinpoint exactly who's going to be on the opposite side of JJ.
You just brought up Omenihu, they're number 94. You brought up Angela Blackson, they're number 97. They're doing some special teams work right now. You see Blackson right over long snapper John Weeks, number 46 there in blue. And that's a good thing because, like you mentioned, in consecutive weeks last year, in which the Texans won games by 3 points, both of those crucial games, one of which was against the Tennessee Titans, the other the next week against Tampa Bay, where you clinched the AFC South title, Angelo Blackson had those blocked field goals, proved to be, very, I'm not going to say they were the difference in the game, but they were points-wise. So those were huge, huge plays by Angelo Blackson. All right, we got more questions. Evan has this. Who's the biggest free agent the Texans should sign? That kind of plays in with a question that comes a little bit later from Bobby, and Bobby wants to know any news on Earl Thomas. I wouldn't hold your breath on that. I don't think the Texans are going to sign Earl Thomas. I don't think he's somebody that they're very interested in. They'll kick the tires on him like they did a year or so ago, but I wouldn't expect Earl Thomas to sign. However, as far as free agents go, I do think the Texans are going to bring some more guys in. I don't think they're going to be huge names, though. Maybe the biggest that you might see is Eric Reed. I still would be mildly surprised if they did sign Eric Reed, just because of what they're looking for at the safety spot right now. But I don't foresee any big name free agents coming to town.
No, I mean, anything could surprise us, but if a big name free agent's coming to town, it means that there might be an injury on the field, which is why it's not really something I want to see right now. I think that they're happy with what they have out there, and they don't really know what they have until they actually start playing the games, because I think they like the guys they have right now in camp. Bill O'Brien talked about the whole process of bringing in free agents. So if they do bring in free agents for tryouts, it's going to be because they're pretty serious. It takes several days to get them through this COVID protocol, get them tested, show that they're positive. Then they get them in the building. Then they do their physicals. Then they work them out. So it's a laborious process to bring in free agents. And the few that we've seen trickle in, it's a lot less than in years past. Wouldn't you say, Drew?
I think it's kind of, I'd mildly disagree. I think it's kind of right on par. We've seen Darren Bates and Anthony Kukwa, they're inside linebackers that were brought in. Kukwa can do some long snapping. I think it's kind of par for the course. You see a trickle. You kind of always see a slight turn because they're guys that they think can upgrade competition at spots, maybe even get a spot. But it's nothing like you're bringing in Joe DiMaggio here and Mickey Mantle there and all that stuff.
It's not like a big tryout that you have.
Yeah,
with a bunch
it's
of
guys that are bottom of the roster.
But the overall rosters have shrunk. Normally we have 90 guys in camp, and we probably between 70 and 80 right now.
Yeah.
It's a lot less.
Right. So we got one more question we're going to get to. It's from Josh. Josh wants to know, will the scrimmages be televised? Well, they might be. Part of it might be televised. You might see some of it here on Training Camp Live. It's scheduled, like we said, for Thursday night inside NRG Stadium. But there's a storm or two in the Gulf that might have something to say about that. So we will let you know. Make sure you check us out on social media, all the Houston Texans accounts, and we will keep you apprised of things as we see, look at that, onside kick drills there on special teams by the Houston Texans. Fun stuff happening here at camp. All right, our producer, Tyler Marcotte, has been telling me something in my ear that I did not quite hear. So Tyler, if you want to just repeat that one more time. All right, we are going to see an interview or part of an interview that DP recently did with a running back named Johnson. It's Duke Johnson. Check this out.
Joining me today on the Deep Slant One-on-One presented by Xfinity, it is running back Duke Johnson, fresh off the practice field. Duke, how's it going today? Year 6 for you. What has camp been like?
Today was good. We had a great day. When our dad executed, flew around, had fun. It wasn't as hot, so that's always a plus. Year 6, this training camp is definitely different from any other camp I've experienced, but I love it. How
different is camp for you now that you've been in this offense for a year and now you sort of know everybody and you know your way around the building?
Yeah, it's a lot easier. I feel like I've been here for a while now. I feel like I've been here more than a year. Just getting reacclimated to training camp. Last year during training camp, I didn't practice with them, but I was here. So, just getting out there, knowing the plays, flying around, and just enjoying it.
Well, you've got a big sidekick now, I guess, a tandem duo, the Johnson and Johnson duo. Now that he's actually on the field with you, what have your first impressions been so far of him and what the two of you can do together?
I think the biggest thing for me is the way he's picking up what they're asking him to do. Just trying to do a lot of different things with him, and he's picking it up. He's studying. He's on top of everything. We come in every morning, quiz each other, all the running backs, just talk through everything to make sure we know what we're doing. But I think that's the biggest thing because he can do a lot. He can run the ball. He can catch the ball. And he's showing the coaches and he's showing the players that, his first year been around that, he's ready for the challenge. He's ready for whatever coaches throw at him. He'll be prepared.
What's been the key to your success in staying healthy and being durable? Who did you watch coming up in the league, and what sort of tips do you have to offer some rookies?
So to be honest, I don't really have tips. I just try to listen to my body. I think the main thing I can say is I'm just blessed because I'm not one of those guys that, dry needling, cold tubs every day. And I'm just not that guy. I try to listen to my body. When I feel something, just try to take care of it, slow down, do things. I really don't know how I made it 5 years, no injuries, but I definitely can tell you I'm blessed. It's definitely a blessing to be injury-free through 5 years. And
well, it's always a blessing to catch up with you, my friend Duke Johnson. Always a pleasure. Have a great season in 2020. It's been the Deep Slant One-on-One presented by Xfinity with Duke Johnson. Duke, thanks.
Thank you.
He's a fun interview. That's good stuff from DP Sidhu with Duke Johnson.
His nickname is the Grinch.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why, but he does have he has a huge tattoo of the Grinch on his leg. And
he watches the Grinch every single day. He
thinks he's a Grinch, but he's just really, I think he's very jolly and he's had such a great attitude. The fact that he came in this time last year in camp and made such a difference, and he sure is excited to play alongside David Johnson. He said he's been in a tandem before with another receiving back, but never anyone as talented as David Johnson. He's super excited to see what the two of them can do, and so are we, for that matter.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun to see what they wind up doing. Eric has a good question out there. He was wondering, who will the Texans scrimmage? A scrimmage on Thursday night. What are you guys talking about? Eric, they're going to scrimmage themselves because of COVID-19. No preseason games and no joint practices or scrimmages with other teams. So that means you got to basically practice against yourself, play with yourself. So that's what the Texans are going to do. They will be scrimmaging, weather permitting, on Thursday night inside NRG Stadium. So check us out to make sure you know the latest on what's going on there.
Yeah, those were league rules that came down this summer because of COVID. They said pretty much no inter-team joint practices. Every team had to stay at their own facility this training camp just to keep every team in its own bubble, essentially, before the start of the season. They're trying to keep the positive cases down as low as possible, 0, and the Texans have certainly been able to do that, have their COVID tests all negative, no positives now here in camp. So but they still need to get their work in. They're not
Yeah.
out there during the preseason, and like you said, the coaches need to iron out the systems of calling plays. Tim Kelly's the first-year play caller here for the Texans. He's done it in preseason, but he's going to do it for the regular season now, and they're going to iron out some of that.
Just saw Will Fuller catch a pass there, and that's perfect because you're looking at the first-team offensive line, and Cullen has this one, or excuse me, Jerry has this question: how is the O-line looking? Well, they're looking much better than they have in years past, as we see in the white hat there. Offensive line coach Mike Devlin. They have and they return all 5 starters who were up front last year there on that side. So left to right, out of tackle, you got Laramie Tunsil. Then you have next to him at guard Max Sharping. The center is Nick Martin. Right now in there, number 64, that is Sunil Kelamete. So Zach Fulton's out, or at least not practicing there right now. And then over at right tackle, you got Titus Howard. He is back from injury. Last time you had all 5 starters healthy and returning that were starting the year before was 2010, headed into the 2011 season here for the Texans. Think about that. Every year since, starting in 2012, there's been at least one mix or one new face up front for the offensive line. Titus Howard, though, one of the keys. First-round pick a year ago, played very well. He was on the all-rookie team, despite missing quite a bit of time with the knee injury. But he is back at it and looking good for 2020, DB.
I get a chance to catch up with Titus today. I'm super excited about that. I think the chemistry of the O-line is very evident in the fact that we're not talking about it. I think it's one of the storylines that we talked about when camp started, but it sort of faded away as we saw that it's the starting 5. Not much to see here. Nothing's really changed. Everyone's out there. The chemistry is good. But Laramie Tunsil out there talking to the offensive linemen in between drills, in between reps. The veteran leadership has come in handy, and you sure are lucky that this is not the year that you've got 2 rookie offensive linemen starting without the offseason program. It was last year, so they've got a little bit of experience. They've got a little bit of chemistry behind them. Nick Martin's running the operation there with Deshaun Watson. Their chemistry is just phenomenal. Those 2 have been friends since Deshaun came in the league in 2017. So O-line's looking good, and I think that bodes really well for the Johnsons, who we talked about earlier.
Very quickly, Alex asked, is J.J. Watt practicing? No, not today. He's okay. They're ramping up. And then we've got another question from Brody. Brody wants to know, how are the new receivers fitting in with Deshaun Watson? Well, they've been fitting in quite nicely, Brody. The work with Brandon Cooks this offseason has kind of paid some dividends early on in camp. We saw a couple days ago Cooks just roasting some guys, and he looked really, really good, can make some tough catches. You got to remember, this guy was a receiver who in 3 consecutive seasons caught 1,000 yards with 3 different quarterbacks in Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and then Jared Goff. So he's been there and done that in the NFL and is looking like he can do that again. Number 13, as you take a look at him there in the distance, as Duke Johnson, number 25, goes in motion, and way off in the distance out to the left of Cooks is Will Fuller. So yes, these new receivers, Randall Cobb as well, number 18, the slot, has built up a nice relationship with Deshaun and can be a bit of a safety valve. It's going to be fun to see what this offense does as we get a little bit of a glimpse as Kahale Waring, number 81, jogs onto the field to mix it up with the first-team offense, DP.
Yeah, I think it's been a lot of fun to watch these new receivers get on the field with Deshaun. Their chemistry has definitely come along, and I think a lot of it is credit to the fact that they are not rookie wide receivers. They are experienced. They played with a number of quarterbacks. Randall Cobb certainly knows, the routes and how what the protections look like and the other systems that he's been in. So for him, he's come out and said that, Bill O'Brien has come out and said that the slot receiver position is a difficult one just because of all the nuances you have to know of the game. And I think Randall Cobb, just being a veteran in this league, is able to come in and really hone in on his communication with Watson. So, like you said, Brandon Cooks a few days ago had a phenomenal practice because it was really the first time he was in there with the 11-on-11s. He was part of that ramp-up period as well. And he's been a lot of fun to watch, as have all the receivers. I think you'll see a lot of speed this year, obviously.
Okay, we are going to go to an interview that I did yesterday with one of the new faces on defense, and it's Eric Murray. This is part of my Drew's Dozen I did with Eric Murray, new safety. Okay, your name is Eric Murray. Did you know that there's an Eric Murray out in the world from the country of New Zealand who's won gold medals?
Yes.
You've heard
Every
that
time,
before,
if I go Google my name, he's the first guy who pops up. So I definitely have seen him before on Google. So yeah, I know about him.
We need to get a meetup with you two sometime. That'd be interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, I went to Australia, so I mean, it's just a hop, skipping away. But I don't know. I don't know if I'll be over there anytime soon.
Yeah, or maybe he'll be this way sometime in the future.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. All right, then let's rank all the Murrays. You got you. We got that guy, the rower. We got Bill Murray. We've got Murray from Sesame Street, and then we've got Eddie Murray, the baseball player. He's in the Hall of Fame. Who are they, 1 through 5?
I do Murray from Sesame Street because my son loves Sesame Street. So
right.
I love that he's a character on Sesame Street and his name is Murray. So I think that's nice.
Okay, that's number 1.
And then I'll have to go with me. And then I'll do Bill Murray, and then I'll do the rower.
The rower. So Eddie Murray's 5. I got you. All right.
Yeah.
There from Eric Murray, and we are going to head on back out to practice, but we're going to bring in one of our good pals, our correspondent in the field, if you will, none other than John Harris. John, it's good to hear from you. It's good to see you as well. What have you been checking out this morning as you wave into the camera there? We're doing all right. What's up with you? And what have you seen this morning? Texans back at work on a Tuesday.
Well, I see my man Mike Eubanks staring over here. I don't know if he wants to get on camera or not, but head of the strength and conditioning department, he's over here watching me, making sure that I don't say anything too nice about the players because he wants to keep them motivated. But no, they're just going through a little walkthrough. Some people call this perfect play, and what they want to do with this is make sure everybody knows the responsibility. Here's a play call, get line scrimmage, know our shifts, our motion, let's know everything. So Tim Kelly's calling a play. AJ will get it, go up to the line. They've got some full linebackers out there, Mike Devlin and TJ Yates, trying to give them a look, make the right mic point. Then they run the play. Everybody's got to have the perfect responsibility. And so that's what they're doing right now. It's just kind of a nice little dress rehearsal, so to speak, to give everybody just here's the play. Let's kind of just walk through this thing and make sure everybody's responsibility is taken care of. So did a little bit of that, a little bit of special teams. They worked on some onside kick earlier. And now they're going off their individual drills, which I always love the individual drills because I always see something a little different than what I've seen in all my years in football. And actually, DBs did something yesterday that I've never seen before. And it seems so simple, but it was something that really, enhanced the drill that we as defensive backs, because I was a long time ago, that we used to do as a defensive back. And I just thought it was really cool. It's like, man, why didn't I ever think of that? And so it was really neat to see what they were doing, and they're going to be into those individual drills now. You see the DBs getting ready there right in front of us.
Johnny, a little while ago, we saw Kahali Waring in there with the 2s. He was in there a little bit earlier with the 1s. Every other day or so, we get asked about Kahali Waring, what he's looking like so far in camp. I know Bill O'Brien talked about him being out there on some special teams drills with the players, but what have you seen from Kahali? Can we read into anything with seeing him more often out there during these reps?
Well, I think the biggest thing, DP, is, as they say, stack that cheddar. Well, you can stack those good practices, too. You can get a good practice day after day after day. And you start stacking enough good practices together, you're going to end up being a guy. Yeah, I'm going live. Keon, get Keon on the camera. Keon said to Drew last night, Keon Crosson's over here heckling me a little bit. I want to go run over there and interview him. Look, see, they're doing their own interview right now.
Yeah,
so maybe I should get my.
Mic, yeah.
Do I get in my defensive back stance? Do I get in my defensive back stance and start doing their drills? I mean, maybe that's what I should do. They probably laugh at me though. It's been a long time since I did them, and I got a herniated disc in my back, so I don't know how far I would get. But yeah, they see a camera around. They're gonna do some mean mugging for it. In fact, they just did a mock interview, so I don't know. It's kind of nice, but either way, as it pertains to Kahali, he's just got to start stacking consecutive practices together. Bill O'Brien has always said this. Look, the best thing about being available is you do get to practice. You practice every single day, and you just start learning one new thing after another. And before you know it, you've strung enough of them together that you can go out on the field and do something and have an impact with this offense. And I think that's where Kahali's got to be. He's had too many interruptions in that this year, and obviously last year he missed the entire year. So he's just got to be able to stack those things together. And if he does, you're going to start to see a lot of the talent that I saw when I studied him coming out of San Diego State.
Yes, good stuff there. And we got a question from Derwin Jordan. Derwin's a loyal Dear Drew question asker. He watches everything live, Texans, Houston Texans wise. He wants to know, have you seen a different flow of the offense with Cooks, Cobb, and Johnson? And you got to include both Johnsons there when he's saying that, and I'm sure he is. But, John, I imagine you are seeing a different flow, A, with the speed, and B, with more ability out of the backfield to catch the ball and do some things, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. My guess, and I actually asked Tim Kelly this question when he came. I was going to say he came in studio with Mark and I, but it really was just a Zoom studio. He was in our studio, and we were at our homes doing a Zoom interview with Tim Kelly, which is kind of weird. But it was one of the things that I asked him. I said, look, this offseason, you're named the play caller. And then a few weeks later, you lose DeAndre Hopkins, but you gain a David Johnson. Then you gain a Brandon Cooks. You signed a Randall Cobb in there, and I'd imagine that probably sent your mental wheels flying. What you could do with those guys, he was like, absolutely. You start, grabbing an envelope and start, drawing different things up on a napkin, and you think about stuff in the car, and you're like, oh man, I think we could do this. And I've been that guy before, stopped at a stoplight, grabbing something out of my bag and trying to write it down because I had a play idea. So, that's the way Tim Kelly is, and I guarantee you there are going to be some different things and some different scheme packages, some different personnel packages that they're going to incorporate with that different type talent. Last year they brought Carlos Hyde here, and Carlos is a banger. He's a guy that runs it downhill, and so we saw the impact of that on this offense. When Duke Johnson was in the game, we know Duke's got a different skill set, or a varied skill set in comparison to Carlos, and so they did different things with Duke in the backfield. Now, they didn't eliminate everything, they ran for those two guys just because, we're only going to do this with Duke and only do this with Carlos. They kind of merged it, but they knew what each guy specialized in. Well, they're going to have to do that for all these different additions, and hopefully in combination, it's going to end up being an offense that's going to be able to put points up on the board and move the ball and maintain time possession against teams that have got great offenses like the Chiefs, like the Ravens. And that was something we talked about earlier today, Mark and I did. Week 6 last year, Texans held the ball for 40 minutes. 40 minutes of time against the Chiefs, and that kept Mahomes and everybody on the sideline. This team can do that too, but I think it can be a little bit more explosive as well.
Johnny, we're watching some of the drills there with the wide receivers. I also see some tennis balls being thrown around. Can you walk us through what the wide receivers are doing? And it looks like you've got a bunch of different guys doing different things, some one-handed catches going on, but what are some of the points of these drills, I think, for fans that are watching that haven't normally seen a practice in this much detail before?
Yeah, I mean, the receivers kind of went through a number of different things. They did, catching a ball at the back of the end zone, where you got to be cognizant of, A, catching the ball, but also, B, what body control, where are your feet, where are you going to land, where's that back line? And so you just rep that out. You catch those passes in the back of the end zone. And then they were just working on kind of a fade drill or a deep ball down the field, in the back corner. How are you going to do the same thing? But now you got to navigate the back line and also the sideline. So they're working through that. So they just kind of jog through, like, okay, here's the ball coming down, track the ball, but also know where your body is. And then as soon as you track and look into your hands, make sure your eyes get to your feet and you can get them in bounds. So they were doing a few different things. Then you saw the tennis balls in the air, and that was Isaiah Coulter. He was actually working, I think it was Jack Easterby, Executive Vice President of Football Ops, who was tossing those to him. And catching a tennis ball, just working on catching one-handed, the focus that you've got to have to snatch that ball, you end up.
But like John was saying, we saw some tennis ball drills there with Coulter and Jack Easterby. And, way back in the day, Mike Leach out in Lubbock had his receivers catching tennis balls from a tennis ball machine, basically, or a jugs machine. And he said if you could catch a tennis ball at 50 miles an hour, you can catch a football too because it's bigger. But Deshaun Watson working there, and it's been a fun camp to watch.
You just wanted to do your Mike Leach impression on this show.
You got to squeeze it in if possible. So let us know if we get Johnny back here in a minute, and we'll go back to him. But we got some more questions coming from fans from around the state, from around the nation, from around the world. But we're going to keep it here. Go over to Central Texas. Ian in New Braunfels. What's the most common starting D-line you've seen out there? Well, Ian, you got to remember, because J.J. Watt has not been out as much as his other guys, as his teammates, you haven't seen the D-line that's going to go out there, and he's the main key in that. So for us to say which starting lineup we've seen defensively, it's kind of like you got to put an asterisk by it. But Dunn, Blackson, they're in there. Omenahu has been very, very active up front on the defensive line. P.J. Hall has squeezed in. Albert Huggins is having a very good camp there on the inside. So you see those guys down there, some of those names that I just mentioned. And I'm not trying to evade the question, Ian, but it's just such a tricky one to answer when you think about what's out there and what's not.
Yeah, I think the coaches want to see what they have in these players and see the mix of guys that they've got out there. So what you see in camp may not even be what you see during a regular season game. But, they're trying to give guys reps. You've got a lot of rookies in the mix as well. They've got Ross Blacklock out there. Certainly he's having a great camp, but has a long way to go, according to Bill O'Brien this morning, as all rookies do, because they've just not had the benefit of being able to practice and have these preseason games. So I'm with Drew. It's a little hard to predict right now. I mean, I think that everyone's really high on Charles Omenihu and what he's able to bring. I think the ceiling is still very high for him heading into year 2. Is he starting opposite J.J. Watt? I guess we'll only know at 7:20 p.m. on September 10th, which is kind of how a lot of these things go around here.
Yeah, and I didn't mention the name Ross Blacklock. He might not start to begin the season. He might, but he might not start to begin things off. But there's a darn good chance by the end of the season he's out there and he's a key cog in what you're trying to do defensively. Got some more questions, and sticking with the defensive line, Eli wants to know, will P.J. Hall play this season? Well, P.J. Hall's got to make this team first. It's a great question because he's a guy who has a little bit of experience, has a lot of talent. We'll see if it is able to translate into A, a roster spot, and B, playing time. But he has a lot to prove, and the Texans don't have a lot invested in him, so to speak, as far as draft picks or money as far as that goes.
Yeah, and I think it is a little bit of an uphill battle for free agents this training camp, because they're just going to have to make the most of what limited reps. And they have to also get adjusted to a new defense. He's got to get used to Anthony Weaver, to the play calls, the terminology. Whenever you move to a new team, that's always a big struggle. It takes time to learn all that. And that's just something that the other players already on the roster don't have to do.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of an uphill battle. I'm not saying it's not possible, but Drew's right. He's got to make the roster first. And roster cutdowns are going to happen here in the next week or so.
We got time for a few more questions. This is Texans Training Camp Live, presented by Xfinity. It's the only place, like we mentioned time and time again, that you're going to see the Texans get to work during training camp. You are not going to see it on any other outlet, so this is the place to be. We got time for maybe one or two more questions, and we got one from 2Gs. Jerry with a G from Germany wants to know, has the offense and defense improved since last season? Yeah, you hope so. You think so. The defense, I think, is going to be a little bit better. New leadership at the top, better health, better depth, and more versatility. And then I think the offense can improve simply because your quarterback has another year of knowledge and experience in the system, and the continuity he has with Tim Kelly, the play caller, I think has only grown. So, yes, Jerry, I do think you can see improvement on both sides of the ball this year, but proof's in the pudding. You got to see whether that happens. So ask me that in about 7 months. Cool? I'll give you a definitive answer then.
I think also you've got some returning veterans that are healthy, which was a big issue last year. Like Justin Reed, for instance, a guy who played with two injured shoulders last year, is back. He's healthy. There he is right there on running drills with the defensive backs. He's as healthy as can be. He's really a leader on this defense. I think to see him back feeling 100%, that is definitely going to bode well for your defense. And Titus Howard on the opposite side of the ball, he's back, he's healthy, he rehabbed all offseason. We saw what he did in his rookie campaign, but now he's back, and I think that also bodes well for the offensive line to have that starting five all back together and all healthy right now.
Edward is going to get the final question in, and Edward wants to know, who do you think will make the Pro Bowl? I think there's a lot of guys who can make the Pro Bowl, but I don't want it to be played, because that would mean that, or I don't want the guys to play, because that would mean that they're getting ready for the Super Bowl. But Pro Bowl-wise, I think you got to go back to Watson. I think because he made it last year, and I think he's going to be better this year. Laramie Tunsil probably going to be a likely pick. Look out for Zach Cunningham.
Yeah,
he's finally getting the recognition, and usually because of what you've done in the 2 or 3 years prior, you wind up getting in after, and he's kind of on an upward trend as well. So I think those are three guys that you got to keep an eye on. Maybe David Johnson, Will Fuller. If they're healthy, they're capable of putting up Pro Bowl numbers. Brandon Cooks as well. Hey, you just said Justin Reed.
You just rattled off a lot of players.
Well, these are
Justin
possibilities.
Reed,
Yeah, you just said Justin Reed. Yeah, if
Whitney
he's healthy.
Merciless. There's a lot of guys that have had good campaigns, haven't been able to make it to that Pro Bowl ballot. It does sometimes lag, doesn't it?
It does.
Players have good seasons, and then the next year is when you see them make the ballot. And I think Zach Cunningham is a good example of that. I think Justin Reed and some of these other players. You certainly want to see as many players as you can get on the ballot. It's going to be in Las Vegas if it's played this year. So
and people,
I'm not going to complain if I have to go to Las Vegas and cover the Pro Bowl. But I would much rather be at the Super Bowl.
And we hear the silent
That's
screams out there. We didn't forget.
Yeah.
I didn't forget. J.J. Watt. He's definitely going to make the Pro Bowl if he's healthy because he's.
Well, that's just understood.
He's a force of nature. Yeah.
But we don't want to be playing the Pro Bowl. We don't even want to be talking about the Pro Bowl right now.
No, we want Super Bowls. All right, DP, this was fun. We had a lot of good stuff today. Answered a lot of questions from around the world on the World Wide Web. But we want to thank Mitchell Moreland here in studio for helping us out. Tyler Marcotte as well. And don't forget Nicholas Patterson, John Harris out there at practice, Amanda Caffey, Jay McDevitt, Tyler Suddarth, and many, many more. I'm Drew Doherty. We will see you again very, very soon. Have a good one. Stay safe for a variety of reasons, and go Texans.